This is the BiggerPockets Podcast, show 139.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
What's going on, everybody? This is Josh Dorkin, host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, here with my co-host, the punching bag, Mr. Brandon Turner. Yo, Brandon, what's up with that black eye, man?
Yeah, I was, walking downtown and got in a fight with some guys over, No, I was out playing Ultimate Frisbee, which is like soccer and football combined with a Frisbee. I don't know. It's the great game. I play with a bunch of like college-age kids around here, which is bad because I'm like the old guy. But anyway, I was like 4 feet in front of a guy, and he took the Frisbee, and as hard as he could throw it, he launched it to the other end of the field, but my face was right in front of that trajectory, and the Frisbee nailed me in the face. I had a nice goose egg on my cheek, I guess you'd say.
Nice.
And now I have a black eye.
So for those of you who are listening and out watching the show, at some point you should go and check out the show on YouTube once it gets up there, and you get to see Brandon's fancy new shiner. Yeah. How you been, man?
I've been good. I went golfing last weekend.
Nice.
And, with my black eye, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And I haven't golfed. Oh, and I got a new dog. People know Charlie. I talk about Charlie a lot, especially on the webinars, BiggerPockets.com/webinars.
Yep.
Webinar. Anyway, I talk about Charlie a lot, and I even show him on the webinar. I got a new one named Ruby. And Ruby is a York. We think she's a Yorkie. Anyway, long story there. We don't actually know exactly what she is, but she looks like my other dog, Charlie.
She's cute.
She's cute. And she's small and adorable.
Well, my dog ran away 2 weeks ago.
I heard that.
Yeah, I was in San Francisco for the Inman Conference, the Inman Connect Real Estate Conference, where I was a speaker. I spoke about podcasting on a panel in front of a room of like 1,000 people. It was great. Lots of fun. Yeah, fancy. So while I'm in San Francisco, my dog gets out, and she's 12 and she's old, and she got scared or something, and she probably was on my driveway, and somebody went and picked her up and brought her to the pound. And so, for like 6 hours, everybody's flipping out about where this dog is, and we finally found her and got her the next day. But that's scary. I was not pleased to be away when that happened. Anyway, things are great here, and I'm just back in town.
You're gone for like a year.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks of travel, California, San Francisco. LA was great, and it's good to be back, and excited to be doing new shows again because we haven't recorded in a few weeks.
We have not, yeah. So, and this is a good one to kick it off with. I learned a ton. I probably learned more in this episode than I've learned in a lot of them, just because it's something I've always wanted to get into and never did. So people like this. But before we get into that, why don't we go today's
quick tip?
All right, today's quick tip is just a short one. If you are familiar with the BiggerPockets calculators, like the rental property calculator, the flipping calculator, we made some changes a little bit now, and you can track a little bit easier your progress on the properties. And that, what I mean by that is you can go back and see a list of all the ones that you've analyzed, all of them from the beginning, and you can rank them like, which ones had the best NOI, which ones had the best, the purchase price. You can order them, sort them. It's just a really good way to keep track of what deals you're making, what deals that you're working on, and kind of what status they're in the process. So kind of cool. Check that out. BiggerPockets.com/calc, CALC. Right
on. All right, cool. Well, the show, you guys, we really appreciate all the listeners, and we count on your support to help grow the show. And we definitely hope that you'll take a couple minutes to leave us ratings and reviews on places like Stitcher and iTunes and SoundCloud, particularly iTunes. And just want to share a recent review from iTunes from EDS 8513, the most informative real estate resource on the web. The podcasts are priceless, and Brandon and Josh make it entertaining. Thank you for what you do. And big thanks to EDS. That was very nice. I'm glad we didn't pick the one that said you guys suck and your jokes are horrible. But all right, guys. So let's get on to today's show. Today's guest is Michael Rogers, otherwise known as Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers he's been a longtime member of BiggerPockets, as you'll soon find out, and he's been investing in single-family duplexes, built triplexes. He's done the BRRRR strategy. And our focus today, a lot of it is going to be on self-storage because we haven't really spoken a lot about that. And of course, value investing, which is a very important theme for anyone and everybody. So we definitely hope you'll pay attention. We cover investing at a really young age. We cover SEO, search engine optimization. So there's lots to learn for everybody. So tune on in and let's get to Michael. All right, everybody. He's member number 5302. Let's welcome Michael Rogers. Michael, good to have you on the show, man.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Brendan. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Do people ever make the joke, Mr. Rogers, to you? Like,
Yes, I especially as a kid, I used to get a lot of that. So
Okay,
yeah,
well,
I'm used to it.
glad to have you in the neighborhood, Mr. Rogers. Today, we're talking about a number of things, but specifically a little bit about self-storage, and we're going to get into that. I know you do more than just that, so this will be a show that encompasses more than that, but I do want to pick your brain on that because from what I can tell, self-storage is a pretty awesome niche to get into. And so I want to kind of find out if that's true. We'll talk about the pros and cons and all that good stuff. But before we get started, where are you located? Where are you investing? And how did you get started?
Sure. Yeah. Definitely. I'm in self-storage a little bit, and I think that'll be a good topic to cover. My background is I'm actually in Chattanooga, Tennessee, or just outside Chattanooga, Tennessee. I grew up in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I live in Ooltewah, Tennessee, which is all within the Chattanooga area. But I grew up in Cleveland, played a lot of junior golf growing up, played college golf at University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, got a degree in accounting, and then after that, I went on and worked at a regional CPA firm, became a CPA, worked there about 4 or 5 years. Then I went in, basically kind of got a niche in internal controls auditing, and went to work for a large insurance company in Chattanooga. Spent about 4 or 5 years there at a Fortune 500 insurance company. Went to another healthcare insurance company in Chattanooga, and I've been there for the last 4 years. The last 2 years, been working part-time. I was very fortunate. I was able to go from full-time to part-time. They let me do that, and it's been excellent. You know, as my business has ramped up on the real estate side, I've been able to scale back a little bit on the job, kind of standard job. So those have kind of been working together. So that's something I've been really fortunate to do. I didn't actually just quit my job. I kind of have transitioned a little bit. But yeah, I guess going all the way back to college, I bought my first duplex, built some triplexes, and bought single family homes, and done a lot of investing through the years. And got about 350 self-storage units now, and about 11 or 12 residential units. It's enough to keep you busy. But it's in a good spot right now. I feel good about where I'm at, and I'm excited about doing more of it.
That's awesome. That's really cool, man. And I'm fascinated because I don't think we've talked to somebody who's transitioned the way that you're transitioning. You know, typically it's I'm going, then I quit my job.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of neat to hear that you were able to go and work with your employer a way to work part-time and continue. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. How'd you do that?
Sure. Yeah. I think, first of all, my employer has been very gracious. They've been extremely good, and they've worked with me on that. And so I've been able to I transitioned to where I work 4 days a week there. So I'm Monday through Thursday there. Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays is kind of family, working on my real estate. I've got 3 kids and a wife, so that definitely keeps me busy there as well.
Congratulations, me too.
Oh, you got 3 kids?
I do.
Oh.
It's time consuming.
Yeah, the third one, when I went from 2 to 3 kids, that got kind of crazy, because you're kind of playing zone defense at that point with 3 kids. So, but yeah, I was able to do that. I talked to them, I have somewhat of a specialized skill set. And so this is kind of boring in the sense of accounting, but I do internal controls accounting, which is like Sarbanes-Oxley. Yeah. It's basically
I don't
like
know what that is.
Yeah, it's internal controls where you're looking at financial statements, make sure they're recorded correctly. It's somewhat specialized, so I guess they needed that skill set, and they were willing to let me work part-time. So it's been a good, it works out well for them, and it works out great for me. And they were very gracious. But I was in a position at that company, knew the management well enough to where I was able to have that conversation with them. I don't know if that would work at all companies. And I think before somebody has that conversation with them, you need to kind of have a sense of where you're at, where that company's at. Is that something they'd be willing to do? Because some places, they if they thought your heart's not 100% in that place, they may have the opposite reaction to that.
Yeah. Well, that is actually one reason why, a lot of people, they get excited about real estate and they want to quit their job. And so they let their work slip, I think. I see that a lot, right? They're like, well, my heart's not in it anymore, so I'm not going to give my employer 100%. Where I look at it from the opposite point, like I would encourage people to give 150% or 200% during that time, because then you can have those conversations because you become invaluable to your company. Yeah. Rather than the guy who just, didn't care anymore because he's going to get rich in real estate.
And I think that's kind of, it's the opposite. I think in many ways, any listener probably knows that the 4-hour work week was this struggle for me. And well, and I think it's because of that. The book, I love most of what's in the book, but there's some things about it that I really don't like, and it's outsourcing yourself, outsourcing your heart and soul to somebody else. And I have big issue with that. And I want to press upon our listeners that exactly what Brandon said. If you're going to be working for an employer while you're doing your real estate, stick to your job. Do what you're supposed to be doing. Do a good job at it. And there are reasons for it, and you're the prime example of it. Being able to continue working, and I bet you over time, if you want to cut down another 5 hours, another 10 hours, and so on and so forth, they'll let you do that until you're at the point where you're ready to go. And that works out great for you, because now you've got the income still coming in from work. You can use that to get, financing for whatever, you need to do. So I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the thing. You make a good point. You absolutely have to, when you're at that job and when you're doing that work, you got to give it 100%. Yeah. And you can't be coming across of, hey, I'm rich on the side, so I don't really need to be doing this, because that comes across and they'll get rid of you real fast if you do come across that way. So that's an excellent point.
Yeah. Cool. So let's go back to your story a little bit. You mentioned you were in college and you bought a duplex, and then you talked about building a threeplex and then your units and so on. So in college, how'd you go about buying a duplex while you were still a student?
Yeah, it was my senior year. I was, getting kind of close to graduation, and I was fortunate. My father was actually worked in banking. He's a retired CPA as well, but he was in banking. So I understood a lot about banks and how they operate, and so I understood the loan to value issues and stuff. So I had a little bit of money saved up. I was able to put that towards it, and they were willing to do 85% of the appraisal. So I got it a good deal, got 85% of the appraisal as opposed to 85% of cost. And so I didn't have to have a huge down payment. They've gotten a little more strict on that in the last few years about, the loan to value. You've kind of got, loan to value can mean two things. One is if you're refinancing, here's what this thing's appraised for, the bank will lend you 85 cents on every dollar. Or it may be if you're buying it, 85 cents on the dollar what you pay for it. Well, that makes a big difference whether it's cost or what the appraisal is, because a lot of times you get the appraisal higher than the cost, so you don't have to come up with as much money. Yep. So that's how I was able to get into that and start out with a duplex.
What does a duplex go for where in that area? I mean, are we talking, I don't know Tennessee that well. I'm assuming it's probably not like a $300,000-$400,000 duplex. They're probably sub $100K or something?
Yeah, this was in 2001. I think it was a duplex for maybe 110, 115. Okay.
Right on.
They're a little more now, but...
Did you live in any of it? Were you house hacking that, or did you just rent it out?
I just rented that one out. Later on, I bought another duplex and lived in it, and I did house hack, so I did do that.
That's awesome. So what would you tell? You've got high school kids and college kids who might be listening to the show. What would you tell somebody who's young person who's thinking about getting into it? Is it too soon? Is it a good idea to start that young? Did you make any mistakes because you were so young, or nah?
Yeah, no. I would say number one is you can always start saving up money. You're always can use having cash on the side. So if you're out there and you're 16 years old or whatever, start setting aside some money, because whether you get into real estate or you want to become an entrepreneur in any form, having that seed capital, that's good to have. Learn as much about banking as you can, because that's probably where starting out you're going to be borrowing from local banks. I've done a lot of that, and building those relationships with them, learning about the business as much as you can. I think those are all really, really important. So
yeah, right on. I think that a lot of people, they think someday I want to get into real estate, maybe 10 years from now, maybe 20 years from now, or whatever, especially like the college kids, right? And so they don't save the money. They don't start living that mentality, because a lot of it's a mindset, right? Like if you have the mindset as a college kid, like it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you're 12 years old. Like it's kind of a largely a mindset thing. So I think that's fantastic advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, and I've been a big fan. My whole investing philosophy is kind of Warren Buffett. I know you've had several other people on here that kind of take that, but I think his idea of value investing, buying things at a discount with a margin of safety. Am I not smiling enough or something?
No, that's Warren the Duck. That's Warren Buffett's
okay.
50-year anniversary Warren Buffett Duck.
Did you go there? Did you go there for that?
I did not, but
Mindy,
who works for us, did. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've been to two of them. It's been a few years, but I've gone to two.
And you're talking about the Berkshire Hathaway annual
shareholder meeting. Yeah, and I don't have any. I mean, I've got like the B shares. I don't have the big ones, but that is, if you're an entrepreneur or you're a capitalist, that's like Disneyland. I mean, it's just so much fun to go there, and they've got all these. There's so many people there. You get to see him talk. You get you do the whole experience of seeing. They bring in all the vendors. So you've got, I don't know, Clayton Homes. You've got the Justin Boots, Geico. Everybody's there. So you get to walk through, and there's such an excitement there. It literally is Disney World for entrepreneurs and capitalists. So if you get a chance, I recommend people go to that.
That's awesome.
Cool.
That's awesome. So let's go to this building, a triplex. So you've got these small multis. And you decide, hey, I want to build. I mean, how do you transition from just acquiring to actually building your own properties?
Yeah, I learned along the way. I think it was just kind of, I found a contractor, and he had all the contacts, but I was almost acting like the general contractor in some sense. I was, learning, okay, here's this sub, here's what comes next. You start out with the foundation, you move along the walls, and here's sheetrock, electrical, the order they go in. So I learned a ton, and just kind of helped manage those people, and I was paying them all along the way, and learned that way. I think that was kind of the steps. And once you kind of get the way things flow, it's the same every time. There's variations, but the basic model stays the same.
Does that knowledge that you gain doing that, I mean, does that help you today in what you're doing? Does it help in evaluating potential deals? How does it assist you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does, because how much things cost. Hey, if there's a problem with this, here are the steps I've got to take, and here's the order they got to go in. You don't want to start out painting something if you're going to have to rip the wall out or change out the electrical and do all these other things. You want to make sure you hit them in the right order, so you're not having to go back and redo things. And you just get those relationships with various subcontractors. And I think you guys have talked about this a lot on your show. But getting good subs, electricians, plumbers, painters, all those guys. I mean, that's really critical if you're going to be doing this business, is being able to get those things and get those guys to show up on time, have them charge a reasonable rate, have them be relatively honest. Finding those, that's very important, and maintaining those.
I like how relatively honest is the high bar that we've set in 2015 for contractors.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have to be completely honest, but just, relatively.
Yeah, well, I probably misspoke there, but yeah.
I don't think you did though. But that's the problem.
Yeah, mine are wonderful, but I've had some, and there's, just, and I don't know if they intentionally are that way, but I think maybe they're just optimistic when they quote sometimes, and then when they get around to billing, they're more realistic. I didn't know I was going to have to paint all 4 walls of that room. I just thought it was there. When you looked at it, why would it change? So I think everybody that's been in real estate for very long, I've been in it 15 years, has experienced that with contractors. It's just part of the trade.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, so let's transition. I know you've got a bunch of other residential units, but we really wanted to talk to you about the self-storage thing. You said you've got 350 self-storage units. So let's talk about that. How'd you get into self-storage? Why self-storage?
Yeah, like I said, I'm always an investor. So I'm looking for things that, as far as you look at how much cash do you have to lay out, and then what's it going to bring back in time? After you pay out all your expenses, what's the revenue minus all the expenses? What's it going to do? And starting in about, I guess the market crashed in 2008, 2009. In 2010, I started seeing some really good deals on things. A lot of property, particularly in our area, was sitting around. Had been sitting there while people have been trying to sell it. So you're able to get it at really good deals. So I came across a smaller self-storage facility. It had a single-family house on it, and then it also had like 50-something storage units. And we already had my family already had a small business in town where I could collect rent from, where I could have people call and sign up leases and so forth. So that was able to bench off that and use that to get some additional income. So I just looked at it and said, okay, I don't remember the exact numbers. Here's what the price is. It needs to be fixed up. It's not performing. All three of the self-storage facilities I bought have been facilities that weren't performing, so to speak. They were either totally vacant, they've been run down, they weren't fixed up, and I think it's a function of. I think self-storage is an excellent investment. I really do, and I've written a blog post about the anatomy of self-storage property or purchase. But I think a lot of people, when they get into it, they kind of see it as being, hey, this is going to be so super simple. You don't have to paint the thing. You don't have any plumbing. You don't have to deal, if the tenant doesn't pay, great, you just auction them, and it's just like Storage Wars on TV. You're going to make a ton of money, because they're going to leave luxury goods in there, and you can sell them for this huge amount of money. And it really, it's not quite that simple. At the same time, if you're somebody that's good at project management, if you're good at, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and following through on things, you can do really well. Because one of the things you deal with is, let's say you've got, for a single family house, maybe you rent it for $1,000. So you got one tenant you're dealing with. Whereas in self-storage, you've got 10 or 15 tenants you're dealing with. And those 10 or 15 tenants, they're cycling in and out. They may stay a month, they may say 12 months, they may say 6 months. Typically a house, they're going to stay a year, 2, 3 years. So you've got a lot of that going on. So you're having to get those units turned over. You got to, get new tenants in. You got to get them out. You got to get them cleaned up. You've got people, they're moving all the time. They're more, their phone numbers are changing, their addresses are changing. You're trying to get a hold of them. You're having to auction them. So there's a lot of logistics going on. So if you don't have systems in place to manage that, it can get overwhelming for somebody. And then I think that's when people kind of throw in the towel, and it kind of does a spiraling effect where things get out of hand, things get dirty, they get messed up. That brings in the worst tenants. The good tenants don't want to be around a place that looks like crap or it's not being run well. And what ends up happening a lot of times, you end up with a whole bunch of units that are full, but nobody's paying your rent. And
gotcha.
And that's where a lot of times when I purchase these things, that's the situation that you're in, is you're going in and you're remediating that by trying to identify the people, trying to clean them out, trying to get the people on a system of paying on the first of the month. And here's what happens if you don't pay by the 5th of the month, you got a late fee. On the 30th of the month, we're going to lock you out, and just kind of going through that system.
And it's the same. I mean, it's the same as training tenants. It's just a different form of training, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's just high volume training tenants. You got 340 tenants for an X investment where you would have much less on a residential.
I love that concept you're talking about like the spiraling decline. Because that happens in every market. I mean, when I look for single family houses, even but more so for the commercial property, that's exactly what happens. Is people, apartment complexes, whatever, people stop fixing it up, which then causes it to decline in value, which makes them stop fixing it up even more because they have no money, and it just gets worse and worse. And so, value add investing, I love that, and the fact that you can do that. I've never really known anybody that's done it with self-storage to the degree that you have, and so I think that's great. So what does that even mean when you say fix up? When you're going to rehab is that new garage doors on it? Is it, paint, roof, that kind of thing?
Yeah, the first one had issues in the sense that I think about 20 or 30 of the units had burned down, probably 10 years before that.
Oh, wow.
And they had just kind of let them languish there. So if you're driving by, do you want to rent there? And think about the people that are willing to stay there. And then the people that were staying there, they may pay when they want to, they may not pay. And it also had this particular property came with a house that had a tenant in it that wasn't paying either. And I don't know why, but they never ever got her to pay. And she is somebody, we could get into this, but we ended up having to get her to leave. I ended up going, I got her to sign a month-to-month lease when she moved in, and eventually just said, hey, this isn't working out. She was just very crazy. And and she wouldn't leave. We had to actually get the sheriff out there to do the set out, and I set her stuff out on the side of the road to get her to leave. But she was a very difficult individual. She'd been evicted, 10 times before because I bought it with her in it, and I found out when I was calling up, to do the eviction process, calling the sheriff's department, they're like, I can't find, are you this person against her? And I'm like, no. Are you this person? They were going through there was like 10 other landlords that had evicted her prior, and she just gotten stuck there. But that was a real experience dealing with her. But we did eventually. It took 76 days from the time I told her to leave to the time I actually got her to leave. But she was a mess. But like you were saying back on the self-storage, yeah, we were going through rebuilt the units, changing out garage doors, redoing the walls, fixing it up, cleaning it up, laying out new gravel on the driveways, changing the roofs out, gutters, painting it, just making it look presentable somewhere. Because if you're going to store your valuables there, you want somewhere that looks nice. In my opinion, it doesn't have to be beautiful, but it doesn't need to be stuff falling down or look really dirty. Nobody wants to put their valuables there.
Yeah. Right on. So I just want to cycle back really quick. You had mentioned your family was in some kind of business. You guys were collecting kind of rents, and you didn't really get into that. And I hope I'm not prying, but I was just curious, what kind of business were you guys in, which made the transition easy for you to get into the self-storage?
Yeah, they've got in the town we're in, they've got a small loan business, so that gives you somewhere where you've got a receptionist where they can come in and make payments and stuff. So, and they can make calls, and people call and ask for rent. They can immediately go there and sign their lease and ask questions about what are the rates and so forth. So it works out well. If you're gonna start out small in self-storage, if you're not gonna buy lots of units, you've got to somehow figure out a way to spread that overhead of somebody that's going to be able to answer the phones, do leases. So you either need to buy a lot of them, or you need to, whether you own an insurance agency or you've got some sort of small office for appraisals or real estate or property management or whatever it is. If you've got something along those lines, you can really bench off that and start a lot better. Otherwise, you probably need to ramp up and start out with 300 or 400 units to try to have somewhere. I know some people, they do it all online. They don't have a location, and you can definitely do that. The software's gotten better. We've got some good. Our software we use is really good. It allows people to go online. They can find us online. Then they can go on, sign up online. We can, it'll send them a contract to sign. They sign it, send it back to us, and we can do everything online. In theory, that works great, but you really need hands on the, boots on the ground to be able to do it and manage it well, because there's just all these one-off things that happen. So that's really worked out really well.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I've always thought self-storage would be fun to get into, but then I always think I rented a storage unit one time back right after college. I rented one, and I remember I had to meet the lady. It was a little old lady. I had to meet her out there by the airport, and she had to unlock the thing. I mean, it was just a very intensive thing for her to have to come and do. And there was 200 units there, and I thought that sounds like a not very fun thing to have to go out there every day and meet tenants. I mean, yeah, that's kind of what held me back. So I like the idea of having a local business. If maybe your family or you own one, or that can be a central location for people to go. I think that's kind of cool.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't scale if you're having to go out and meet every single tenant, because you're renting these things, a couple a day a lot of times. And if you're having to go out there, leave your job and go do that, there's no scalability in that. So that's the thing on systems and stuff with real estate, because it's such high volume. Anything high volume, whether it's you're renting apartments or you're renting self-storage or whatever you're doing. If you're doing lots of volume, you've got to have systems in place where, hey, you do this, you do this, you do this. And if somebody's like, hey, I want to do this, this, and this the other way, you're like, you know what? I think there's a place down the road that probably would fit you better, that you might want to try. Because you get, when you're doing that volume of people, you get people that are excellent. You get great tenants. You get good tenants, and then you get a certain percentage that aren't as good. Either you get the kind that don't pay, and you get the people that are really, really difficult, or they're very demanding to some extent. And we're kind of trying to rent. We stay on the lower end of the price point and try to give good value on that. And we tell folks that up front. We're like, hey, we may not be able to do every single thing you may get at this other place or meet your absolute highest goals. And if that's okay, if we can't, we may recommend you go somewhere where you can get that. A lot of times they're not ever going to find anywhere they can get that, but it's better than saying no to them.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I mean, is there, with apartments, you're screening tenants. With commercial, you're screening tenants. With self-storage, I use self-storage like Brandon back in college, for a few summers, and it was great. And I walked in, I said, I want to rent a unit. They said, great, give us this money. I gave them the money. I went and I was done. I put a lock on the thing. I put my stuff in there. And then when I was done, I took my lock, I gave them my money, and it was a wrap, right? So that's,
Yep.
I guess, an easy tenant. But what kind of screening is necessary above and beyond kind of that conversation you're having? Is there even a screening process? I don't remember.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. Residential, it's a much more thorough screening process. For a house or somebody's renting, I'm going to pull a credit report. I'm going to talk to their previous landlords. I'm going to get a really good idea on these people before I let them in, because the process of getting them out is a lot more difficult. It's not easy to get them out in self-storage, but it's more defined. So each state's different on their eviction laws for self-storage, so it's state by state. But Tennessee, you get after 30 days, you can overlock them. So you essentially put a lien on the property. You got to notify them, send them a certified mail letter, say, hey, you haven't paid. We're going to overlock you. And then at 60, technically, I guess you can go ahead and do the auction. We don't ever get anywhere near 60. We're probably 6 months, a year out somebody before we'll auction them. And we're going to try everything we can not to auction. We'll work with them, to say, hey, can you make some sort of payment? Can you try something? Because we don't want to auction it. That's not a win for us, because all we're going to collect is up to what they owe us. In theory, when you do an auction to recover money for what they owe you, anything above and beyond what they owe you goes back to them. And so you're
really. So if
that,
you're auctioning somebody's goods at all these TV shows and stuff, when they're doing auctions, the folks who are the payment received, you get up to what you're owed, and then beyond that, it goes to the person who's got the goods.
Yeah, we've never gone that, but in theory, that's what the lien is. That property is being used to pay back what that person that's taking a lien on that property and paying it back has done it. So, and we never get more than what we're owed. I mean, it just doesn't happen, because we'll get some. We might get $400 or $500 on, but for the most part, they're 20, 30, maybe $100 you're going to get off a unit. And it's a lot of it is, I'm sure in some of these areas you see on TV, there are great cars and luxury items kept in storage, but for the most part, you're going to get a mattress, you're going to get a Christmas tree, a broken bookcase, a few of those, a lot of clothing. And so the people that are going to show up are people that do like thrift store sales. Those are going to be your big buyers. They're going to go in, they're going to take that stuff, and they're going to put it in some sort of thrift store and sell it out like that. But you don't get tons and tons of money on it.
Interesting.
Right
yeah, I like that show. I watched it a few times, that Storage Wars, I think.
There's like 30 of them now.
Yeah, there are a lot of them, yeah. There's so much drama, and the guys are bidding up. I don't know. It was such a drama-filled show. You're saying that's probably not realistic, at least where you're at?
No, I think that's a lot like these home flipping shows. There's some reality to that, in the sense that you can buy low, fix it up, and sell it. But they got to make a good TV. So I don't know if they plant things in there or not, or they just do a lot of editing to get the really good ones. But that's I don't see that.
Yeah, I mean, because that's an interesting point, right? If 99% of them just have a mattress and a broken bookshelf, that show would be terrible. So they must know what's in them before they open them.
Or they plant stuff in there.
Or they plant stuff in there.
I make no accusations. Of course.
Yeah. Funny. All right. So moving on. I want to talk a little bit about what are the cons of self-storage? Why shouldn't I get into it? What are the things to look out for?
Yeah, I think it's really like any investment, in the sense that the real key is buying it right. So making sure you don't pay too much. So I bought that first one, and then the second one I bought, this thing was a 5,000 square foot commercial building up front, and then behind it there was one building, and then they had two concrete pads built out where you could put more self-storage on, and they already had the fence around it. And this was this is 2010, 2011 was out there, and they wanted $600,000 for this thing. And I was talking to the realtor and so forth, and they're like, they're pretty, they're really wanting to sell this thing. So I came in at 200, and they were at first, they're like, we're not so sure, blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's okay. Right now I'm okay. And then they came back and said, okay, we're interested in it. So I went in, and then at that point I went in and looked at it, and in the office building, the ceiling was falling down and blah, blah, blah. So, but when it was all said and done, I was able to get it for 180 and put about 20 in it and get it to work, which is really, really good as far as cash flow wise, for that number of units. And then they already had the concrete poured for two more 4,800 square foot slabs. They already had all the fencing ran, that stuff was set up to where you got those fixed costs. And then you had that 5,000 square foot office warehouse where we turned that into climate control storage eventually. But we kind of started out small, where we We had that first one, we got that filled up. Then we built out the second one. The next year we built out the third one. The fourth year we built out the climate controlled and the big warehouse. And we just kind of took it a little bit at a time. But I think the biggest con with self-storage or any investment is if you pay too much, you get where you're not making enough to pay for what the true expenses are. Whether it's, I know you guys talk about the 50% rule all the time, but that's kind of true. If you first look at something, you're like, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. There's not that much expense in this, but there's a lot of expense that pop up. There's a lot of one-time expenses that happen every single year that people don't think about. So that's probably the biggest thing. The second tough thing.
Hey, before you go to the second tough thing, do you mind just throwing out what those some of those are, those hidden expenses?
With self-storage or just?
Yeah, self-storage.
Well, one of the things that we found is the gates. I mean, those things, the gate operators, you've got those suckers. I mean, I've always got somebody out there on those 3 facilities looking at those things. I would say every 3 or 4 months, there's somebody out there, and it's not cheap. They're sitting out in the weather conditions. If those things aren't operating, you get phone calls. People want to get their stuff, or if they get stuck in there, you got to have those working. And so you've got to have a good relationship with that gate person. That's always happening. You get vandalism. You get people, for whatever reason, people don't drive U-Haul. Well, I know a lot of people don't drive U-Hauls every day, but when they get in them, they just turn idiots. I mean, they bounce into, they're going to hit your buildings, they're going to hit your gutters. You got to put up these kind of idiot poles to keep them from sideswiping your building.
Is that the technical name?
Yeah, I think they call them bollards, but yeah, you got to have that stuff. There's that. You're always cleaning them out. Even we've got a fee we charge people if they don't clean out, but trying to collect that's obviously it's very difficult when somebody's left to try to collect that fee. But you're always cleaning them out. You're always getting rid of stuff. There's a lot of that maintenance on those. You've got the lights are going to go out. You've got various things like that. But a lot of it is. Another thing is you're just dealing with so many people, and everybody, you can imagine if you've got 10 tenants for your 10 residential properties, they all have issues. People have personal issues, and a lot of times those become your issues, unfortunately. If you've got 300 people, you've got that many issues you're having to deal with. So those are the kind of things that you have to deal with and have systems and processes in place.
Yeah. I love the emphasis you have on the systems and processes. A lot of our guests recently here on the podcast have been the same way. I'm a big systems guy. I know Josh is a big systems guy. We just love that concept of having things run just smoothly like an engine. I love that.
Yep.
All right. So we were just talking about the cons of it, and it was having to buy correctly and, making sure your numbers are good and then understanding all those hidden expenses. So, okay.
And then just dealing with the people. I mean, the people, most of the time the people are good, but you're getting a lot of transitory type folks involved. It's a lot of collections. This is somewhat of a collections business to some extent. You're going to have a very large number of people that you're doing reminders. Our software is set up, so kind of talking about those systems. The last day of the month, the day before the first, it automatically sends out an email and a text to everybody. So we make it sure everybody signs up, has an email address with us and a cell phone. And so they get that automatic notification. On the 3rd of the month, they get another text message, another email saying, hey, by the way, this rent's passed to you. And on the 5th at 5 p.m., we're going to charge a $20 late fee, no exceptions. Because we tell people up front, we're like, hey, rent's always due on or before the 1st. If you pay on the 6th, you're not a day past due, you're 6 days past due.
Yep,
so we charge
the same thing.
Yep. So because a lot of times people come in on the 6th and they're like, I'm 1 day past due. Why is there a late fee? And you're like, well, no, you're 6 days past due. But, and if somebody's got a really, really great reason, if they're in the hospital or something, we'll work with them. But for the most part, this takes care of it. And then on the 5th, we'll send those emails out manually. But having that software is really important because if you're sending out letters and stuff, if you're having to mail that crap, if you're having to call all these people all the time, that's really tough to do when you're doing volume. It's impossible to do it on any scale. So we do it. It's automatically set up to do that. And then we send them emails out manually. We just click of the button after the 5th. We'll send them out periodically. And then we get those people, there'll be 20 or 30 people that are past due at that. Then we do have to start calling. But it's a lot easier to call 20 or 30 versus several hundred from the beginning.
Yeah. As you're saying this, I'm looking at my own business and I'm realizing, we spend $50 a month maybe on letters and stamps, right? Plus my wife's time of printing them and going to the post office, dropping them off, typing them up. I'm like, why don't I just, again, going back to the system thing, why don't I go and send out one letter to every single tenant and demand or ask or call or whatever their cell phone number and their email address? I mean, they all have an email address. They probably do. I mean, that would probably right there just cut down, several hours a month of work
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that'll free up a lot of time for you, a lot of money.
Yeah.
And this
Systems.
software we got, our software, I mean, it's only $49, $50 a month for this stuff to automatically do that. So, I mean, I guess you can send an email, or you can even have it set up where it just automatically does it. So, I mean, that saves you a lot of time.
Do you mind me asking what software that is?
We use Easy Storage Solutions. They're out of Utah. It's several guys out there, and they're really good for particularly smaller self-storage and residential. I use them for all my residential stuff as well. I put all my tenants on that, so they're all doing that. Sorry, I didn't know that off the top of my head.
That's all right.
Great.
That's all right.
That's
Cool.
great. Hey, so you had talked about vandalism really, really quickly, like security issues, vandalism. What, is it just people? I mean, is it people breaking into other people's units? Is it people, just graffitiing on the property? What kind of vandalism do you deal with as a self-storage operator?
Yeah, mainly occasionally you'll get somebody that'll break in somebody's unit. So we always tell people there's almost like 3 lines of defense for self-storage. One, you want to have a place that's got a good gate, good fence system, so somebody just can't walk in there. 2, you want to have a really good lock. You want to have a disc lock versus a lock that's got a big old thing that I can easily get a pair of clippers around. Yeah. And 3, you want security cameras as a deterrent. None of these things are going to absolutely stop somebody that wants to get in a storage unit. If somebody wants to get into that self-storage unit, they're going to get in. If they know something's in there, there's nothing we're going to be able to do to stop them. But you do get that occasionally. You get people that get their stuff broke into, and you just have to work through it. I mean, it's and when we go through and say, hey, you really need to get that good disc lock, because it's much less likely somebody's going to break into that unit than if they're just looking for an easy target. They're going to pick the little small lock that's got an easy thing they can clip.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Right on.
What about security deposits? When you have a tenant move in, do they pay a security deposit of anything, or is it just first month's rent?
No, we don't actually do a security deposit. And going back to your previous point, how do we underwrite them? As far as getting new tenants, when we first started out, there really was no underwriting problem. If you could show up and you had the money, we would do it. We've since kind of gotten a little stricter on that. We now require that you have a valid driver's license. And I think some of that's come back to be common sense, that if somebody drives up to rent a storage unit and they can't give you a driver's license that's valid, they're already breaking the city that you're in's laws. So what makes you think they're going to follow your rules and pay you and do that if they're willing to take a chance on getting arrested or fined? They're probably not going to obey your rules either. So we've done that. We've noticed people that could only give us ID only and could not give us a driver's license. They tended to go bad more often. So that's one thing we've done to kind of try to weed out some of the bad ones.
Okay. And then how do you find tenants? I know you mentioned earlier the internet. I mean, is that your main source? Do you advertise in the newspaper or what?
Yeah, I think the evolution of renting self-storage has gone from Yellow Book. I think everybody was on the Yellow Pages, 10, 15 years ago.
What's that?
Yeah, exactly. That was a big deal. And those guys had a monopoly. I mean, if you ever had to deal with them back then, they really, they were going to go up 10, 15, 20% a year, take it or leave it kind of deal. And then since, with the disruptive effect of technology, they've still got a model out there, but it's not quite as powerful, or not near as powerful as it was. So search engine optimization, that is, if you're in self-storage or you're anything high volume, I would say if you got a lot of apartment buildings and you're constantly needing to get a new pipeline of customers coming in, that's key. That's it now. I mean, you've got to be, when somebody comes in and stops in self-storage, Cleveland, Tennessee, which is where ours is, they got to see Chandler Properties. I mean, and they'll see that 1, 2, 3 times on page 1. They're going to see it from the Google Maps. They're going to see it just from the normal search engine optimization, where they can go out and see an article about you. So you've really got to work that, and that takes a little time to get that built up. But once you get it going, that's pretty much where we're getting a very, very large percentage of our stuff is that SEO, search engine optimization.
So what are some tips that people can follow here that are listening, whether they have rentals of their own or whether they're doing an I Buy Houses website or whatever? What are some tips that they can do to get more search traffic?
Yeah, I think, number one, you need to go out on Google Places. You need to go on Bing Places. These are things you can go on for free. You go out there and you set the information up about your business, and then they're going to mail you a little postcard with a code on it. You're going to take that code, you're going to enter it in, and that's so they know that you really are located at that spot. And you're going to put all the information you can on there. You're going to have a good website. You need to have a website that is functioning, which I'll check this morning and mine's not. So I made a quick call to the to my web guy to say, hey, what's going on? But that should be back up by the time we run this podcast. Yeah. But But you got to have that, and you got to work. You got to be doing blog, having a good blog where you're writing about stuff, and it can't just be a bunch of crap. You can't just be putting stuff out there with keywords in it. You got to have stuff to where people actually care about it, and that's a big thing. If you listen to any of these things like Google puts out about, hey, how do you get ranked? They want quality content. They want things out there. Same way you guys put out quality content at BiggerPockets. So if somebody types in real estate investment websites, y'all are going to show up. If you do that with your website, if you're, how to rent self-storage, what size storage unit, Donnie, these are kind of things people are looking for. If you put out good articles about that, Google's algorithms and little robots or whatever they're out there crawling those websites will find that, and they'll rank you higher. So if you do that, and a function of that is also having those backlinks. You need to have from good websites, them linking back to your website. So if you're writing articles and so forth, and they're linking back, and it's got to be quality. Google's really started to penalize, or they penalize for a while people that just go out and put a crap comment on every website they go to, or try to get these cheap backlinks. That it'll have the negative effect on it. But if you're actually putting out good quality content, you're active doing that. That helps rank you higher with those websites.
Yeah, and that's the key across the board for anyone listening on SEO is good quality. Period. Targeted quality content. You said self-storage, not Chandler, but whatever it is, Tennessee. You're right about storage in that area. You do the best job possible, and that's going to do it. What we're starting to kind of get later in, and we've got a few remaining questions I'd love to tackle before we finish up. You had talked about, we're talking about these properties, and one thing we have not talked about are the numbers. So I hope, you'd be willing to kind of go there with me on this. So you had mentioned I think it was that first facility. You said you paid, I think, 180, put 20 in. So that's $200K into this property. That's what, 50 units. So what kind of rents are you? I may be misquoting you completely, and if so, no. I'm sorry.
That's right. I'm trying to think back the exact numbers. I don't have them right in front of me, but at that time, I think there was 36, 40 units. Well, there's 36, I believe, in that one. We were getting a couple thousand. I would say it's probably somewhere around 2%, maybe like the 2% rule or something, or better. So I can't remember the exact numbers, but let's say if you put, if you're going to buy something for $100,000, you need to be getting $2,000 or more a month in gross rents. We've been able to do that. It's hard because self-storage has gotten so popular. Try to find something at 2%, really, really hard. And so I've, in order to find those, I've resorted to just yellow lettering people in my market and saying, hey, if you're ever interested in selling or you want to have a cup of coffee and blah, 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 and call me. And that's allowed me, because I just bought one about 2 months ago, and that's how I got it. I just sent them a quick letter and was able to get it.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were talking about this, I was like, I think I'm just going to find out all the self-storage facilities in my area and just write a letter to them. I mean, there's not that many. There's probably a dozen, maybe 2 dozen. Because
you have the infrastructure to manage a self-storage facility on top of everything else that you do. But anyway, moving on.
I'll figure that out. All right.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, occupancy. What, at that 2%, what kind of occupancy are you hoping for?
Yeah, it's going to fluctuate, but typically 85% or better is what we'll kind of consider that somewhat full. Okay. It's going to be near 100% during the summer. During coming the fall, Christmas, wintertime, it drops down. So it's going to cycle a little bit, and it'll pick back up in the spring when people are moving and so forth. But that's kind of where you're going to see your occupancy rate. And if you're looking for kind of that stuff, let's say somebody out there is saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing self-storage. I wrote down a couple of places you might want to go to. You might want to try like the SSA, Self-Storage Association. There's a Inside Self-Storage. If you just Google those, you go out there. There's kind of like blogs and information. You can learn about self-storage if that's something you're interested in doing.
Cool.
Very cool. Hey, maybe my last question, I guess, before we go to the fire round, and Josh might have one more, but I want to know what you do personally in the business related to, I mean, are you the guy that actually goes and signs leases and shows units with people, or do you have people that do that? Like, what do you do, Mike?
Yeah, I'm involved, not so much on the day-to-day stuff. I will go out there and clean them out all the time on the weekends. I'm cleaning them out. I'm not renting them as much. And we don't go out and show people that unit each time. We say, hey, if you want to see some pictures of it, get on the website, check it out. And you can come into the office and you can rent it there and we'll get you fixed up. So that's one of those things to kind of save yourself some time. You got to get it to where you're not having to run around and do all these different hurdles to try to get a new tenant. Otherwise, you'll just work yourself to death and not make anything for your time. But yeah, and then the strategy of it, I'm an accountant, so I like doing the bookkeeping and stuff. At some point, I'll probably have to outsource some of that. But I do those things. I make sure, that the maintenance is getting done. I'm project managing it. So there's always things going on. I mean, it's just like you guys have got with real estate, your properties, there's always something breaking or something going on that you're having to manage, the plumbers, electricians, the mowers, everybody.
Yeah. It gets overwhelming.
Awesome. Hey, so I think my last question on this, we talked about self-storage pretty much, I think, fairly exhaustively. I'm just curious about building versus buying. Is there any advantage to just building from scratch? Can you do that more cost efficiently potentially, or does it just make more sense to buy something that's there?
Yeah, again, it's just running the numbers on the situation. Typically, like I think most of your people have seen residential, if you can find a distressed person or something that's not in its best shape, you're going to buy it cheaper at a discount than going out and buying the land, going out, pouring the concrete, building the units up, putting the fence around it. Typically, you can get it at quite a bit more of a discount if you find somebody that's motivated to sell. Just like, if you decide you're going to build a single-family house versus finding a motivated seller, like one of these we buy houses sites, you're probably going to be able to find a deal. I can't make one work where I buy a raw piece of land and build it up to make it financially work for me. I can buy, like the one I bought it at enough of a discount where it came with enough land and the pads set there where I could build onto it. And it made sense to add on to that facility. But starting one from scratch, currently in my market, I wouldn't be able to make that with enough margin to make it safe of an investment.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. All right, man. So before we go to the fire round, I've got one question. I said up front that you were, I think, member 5,000 something or other. I mean, that's pretty serious. We've been around a long time at BiggerPockets. You have as well. So, as somebody who's been on the site for many, many, many years, I guess, what advice do you have for somebody else who, may just be joining and how they can get the most value out of a place like BiggerPockets?
Yeah, and I think you said, I think y'all are up to like 350,000 members. I didn't realize I was that early, but I knew I'd been there a while.
Yeah.
But I think, I told you guys offline on this, but, I think Josh, you've done an excellent job, and Brandon, you too, coming in, just having the tone of this community you've got is great. It's legitimate. It's not we're trying to sell you some sort of boot camp or some sort of marketing thing. And I think even the community itself is set up to where even if you're on the forums and you're seeing somebody type something and you see somebody kind of get out in left field about something that's wacky, you'll have somebody come in and kind of shoot them down pretty quick. So that's hard to find in real estate. If you type in looking for real estate investment, you're going to get 10 to 1, you're going to get somebody trying to sell you something. There's probably as many people selling books on how to make money in real estate as there are people investing in real estate. So I think you guys have done a fantastic job on that. I would recommend anybody that's on this site, watch the podcast. Y'all's podcasts are fantastic. I mean, it's so easy to do. You can put it on.
And this might be the best show that we've ever had, right?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I'm not going to say that, but you guys do a great job on all the shows. I mean, from watching the shows like Brian Burke and Jay Scott and all those guys, you always pick up something when you hear these people talk. Whatever the topic is, you're going to find one or two little details, and it's so easy. You can put it on, and then you can check your email, do your bookkeeping, whatever, and you just kind of listen to it in the background, and you'll pick something up. So to me, the podcasts are by far the greatest assets you guys do just from learning. And then the forums are great and meeting people and so forth. But I learn more from the podcast probably than anything.
Well, thank you. I learned a lot from podcasts too. I mean, this episode I've learned a ton of stuff. So I'm not even kidding. I'm really excited to go out and look at stuff.
Which is really funny because this is the first time that we've talked to somebody in kind of a new thing for me, where I was like, maybe we should have gotten the other guy because this guy makes me not want to do it. No, seriously. And I think I think it's a beautiful thing. That is why this is such a powerful medium. I think self-storage, I was really excited about self-storage. And then thinking about just, there's a lot of day-to-day. There's a lot going on. It's not a kind of sick. I mean, it's far more time intensive than renting out a single family property, or at least it seems to me. Seems like there's the potential for a lot more headaches as well. So it's fascinating. I mean, you're not dealing with toilets, but you're dealing with a lot of other stuff. Am I crazy?
No, and you're right, and I don't want to give the idea that, hey, self-storage is not a great investment. I'm not here to poo-poo it. I think I don't think your dog liked that, did it?
No, he jumped.
But no, it's a great investment. But it's like any investment, you got to buy it at the right price to where you can afford to pay people to do the things you need to do to make it work. But you're right, though. You're dealing with a lot of people, and when you got a lot of people you're dealing with, you got more issues than just 1, 2, 3 people. But overall, it is a good investment. I want to communicate that to people. But just like any investment, buy it right. Don't pay too much.
Yeah. And I wasn't trying to dissuade people from doing it. I was just saying, like, personally, I'm like, oh, more people, more headaches, more drama. I don't like drama or people or headaches. Just you two.
Thank you.
All
right. Well, my dog is barking in the background. Don't mind him. But I actually got a new dog, another Yorkie, and I have 2. So I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, they're still getting used to each other. They wrestle all day long. All right. So let's go to the world famous fire round. But before we do, I do want to tell people. I know we did not talk about it at all this episode, but you recently have been doing or did the BRRRR strategy, the buy, rent. Or buy, rehab, rent, refinance strategy. And you have a member blog post that we're going to link to in the show notes on this, which is at biggerpockets.com/show139. Anyway, I want people to go check that out because your pictures are amazing, like the before and after, especially the kitchen and the counter.
Yes, I encourage everyone, go out there and look at that counter. See if you see anything that does not belong. It is something I've never, ever bought.
I have never, yep. That is a first for me. So people can check that out. It's again biggerpockets.com/show139, and there'll be a link to the post called "My Latest BRRRR is Rehabbed and Ready to Rent." All right, with that, let's move on to the fire round.
It's time for the fire round.
All right, the fire round. These questions come direct out of the BiggerPockets forums, which people should be probably jumping into at biggerpockets.com/forums. If you have never participated in the forums, it seriously is really, really easy. Go there and you press the big green button that says start a discussion, and you can ask any question in the world as long as it's semi-real estate related and not, vulgar. But pretty much anything you can ask, and you're going to get people that jump in and answer your questions. People like Mr. Rogers here. So, all right.
Back from the dead.
I couldn't resist. All right. The fire round, today's fire round questions, they're all kind of related to self-storage. At least some of them are. Number 1, how do you figure out what price to rent a unit out at? And that could be self-storage or regular.
Yeah, well, self-storage, I'm going to look around. I'm going to call my competitors. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to see what's online, and I'm going to try to price it in that market. And that's where I'm going to stay. I'm just going to see. And as things start getting filled up a little bit more, I'm going to go up a little bit more. But I would say go out there and look, see what your competitors are charging, and you need to stay somewhere around there. We kind of stay on the lower end of what our competitors are doing, just to kind of keep them rented. But I think that's probably the best way.
Right on. All right, question number 2. Do you think it's a good idea to invest in a storage facility in a different state? Do you always need to be available? So can you invest in self-storage at a distance, I guess is a better question.
You can. I've not done it. I don't think I will do it. Kind of going back to those points we talked about, this is kind of like investing in houses far away. You can do it if you've got good people, boots on the ground, property management there that can watch it for you. I like being close to things. I like to be able, if there's a problem, I want to be able to get there. Not saying I'll always be the person to go do it, but if you've got a major issue, it's nice to be able to get there within 15, 20, 30 minutes as opposed to having to hop on an airplane to get there.
Yep. Right on.
All right. Number 3, once you get a property, where do you find forms for your unit renters to sign?
Oh, like a lease?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah. There's several. I mean, I think even on BiggerPockets, don't y'all have some links out there to leases and so forth? I don't know.
There's a form section.
I think,
/forms.
Yeah, and I think
files.
Files. I think it's primarily for residential, and I don't know that there's anything self-storage specific.
Oh, okay. If you're talking self-storage, I would go out and you might want to rent a few self-storage units in town, or it's maybe some of the big ones like a public storage, or if you look at Uncle Bob's or these places, and kind of take a look at their leases and use that as, don't plagiarize it. Obviously, don't copy what they do, but get an idea of what are the things that are in there. Get you an attorney involved to help come up with something. But you're not reinventing the wheel here. Go out and see what's working for the big players, for the other players, see what they're doing. Kind of say, hey, are there any little things in there that I haven't thought about that really I ought to put in my lease too? But I'm not liable for, if you have some sort of issue with it, putting those things in there. I think that's really important to look at what your competitors are doing.
Right on.
Yeah.
And I want to press upon people to go and talk to an attorney. I think it's great that there's all sorts of resources, including BiggerPockets, where you can go and download a lease and look at it. But at the end of the day, if you want to get your backside covered, you bring it to an attorney and you have the attorney review it. So
absolutely,
definitely be sure to do that.
That said, I do want to also say, like, that point you said about find out what the big guys are doing. Don't reinvent the wheel. I think that's an amazing tip for any real estate, right? Like, I mean, that's how I try to run my landlording business. Is I run it exactly like the guy who has a 5,000 unit property, because they figured it out. Like, why am I trying to figure out something new? Like, I got this new way of landlording. Just do it the way that they do it, because they've mastered it over years and years and years.
Well, you have a new technique, so you're a guru then.
There you go. I got a new secret way to do this, and I can tell you for 3 easy payments. All right.
Yes. All right. Last question. What are the first steps someone should take to invest in their first storage unit?
That's a good question. I would say learn about it. I would say get out there, talk to people that are in that business. Maybe they're not exactly in your market, but reach out, read things online. Go check out that SSA or Inside Self Storage. Those websites that are out there. There is stuff out here on BiggerPockets.
BiggerPockets.
Yeah, BiggerPockets.
I had a cough. It's just...
Yeah, but BiggerPockets. There's you could listen to this podcast. You could go out and learn. Don't sign up for any major expensive boot camps or anything. If you've got the personality to where you like to learn and figure things out, that's typically what makes people good investors. If you're wanting to spend tens of thousands of dollars to do it the quick way, you probably don't have the work ethic in you to make it work anyway. So I would say learn it on your own. Try to figure it out. Talk to people. There's lots of people out there who'll talk to you. You'll get it organically that way.
Right on.
Great.
That's great.
Love that.
Awesome.
All right, let's move on to the world famous.
Famous for.
All right, the world famous four. These
Why
questions.
why did we actually do that? By the way, thinking back,
What?
we used to.
Yeah, we now we have a sound effect that goes there.
I
but,
know.
Yeah.
It's great.
All right, the famous four. These questions are asked of every guest, and you're no different, Mr. Rogers. So, number one, what is your favorite real estate book?
Real estate. I came up with two, if that's okay. I would say
Not allowed.
Okay. All right.
Fine.
I would say that just one, Millionaire Real Estate Investor by, I think it's Gary Keller or somebody. Hey, that was a great, when I first read that idea of, buying on margin of safety, looking at lots and lots of properties, then you go in after you've looked at, thousands, and you pick out, a couple hundred you look at real seriously that how to make the grade. You get down, you keep down until you finally get that one. That's what investing is all about. It's looking at lots and lots of things, figuring out what's mispriced, and then swooping in and getting it real quick. Yeah. And then another one, I think it's a really good resource, is Every Landlord's Legal Guide by Nolo. They put that out there. That's a good layman's terms source. That's where you can actually get they've got some forms there. Now you mentioned it on leases, standard communications with your tenants, and then they've got some state specific laws. They put down a little index about, what you got to do with your deposits and what you can do in each state. Each state's a little different, but that I've always found that to be a very good resource.
Yeah, I have that, and it is a great resource.
Right on. I like it. Right on. All right. Favorite business book?
I would say Essays of Warren Buffett. I really like that book. That's kind of taking all of Warren Buffett's letters to shareholders over the last 50 years, and they kind of combine that into a theme. Yeah, his idea of value investing is great. It's the idea that you kind of know what the intrinsic value of a property is, or a stock, or whatever it is, and you let the market go up and down, and you use the market to your advantage. You don't have to go in and buy all the time. It's perfectly fine to let a property go by that you're not sure about. The big mistake is paying too much or getting something, letting one, latching. The only way you're going to lose money investing is making a bad investment. Letting one go by, you're going to be okay.
And that's very timely given the state of the economy, both local and globally. And this show comes out in a couple of weeks. But this past week is the week where the market was down 1,100 points. We were down almost 10% over a 5-day period, and a lot of people are flipping out. But at the end of the day, if you're buying for intrinsic value, then you're in a lot better position, whether it be stocks or real estate.
Yeah, I mean, when prices go down, that's when you want to be taking a real serious look about buying things. It's not when everyone's excited about them because prices are high. That's typically when you don't want to be in something. It's when the herd's looking at it and saying, "Gosh, this looks great." That's always a bad sign.
Yeah. Hey, what do you do for fun? Hobbies?
Well, like I said, I've got a wife and 3 kids, so that keeps me extremely busy, playing with the kids and so forth. I used to play a lot of golf. I play 2 or 3 times a year now. But I really, the real estate, I enjoy it. It's something that I love doing. I've always found it interesting. I like talking shop with other real estate investors like you guys or friends or people I meet kind of come and going. And I always recommend to people, check out BiggerPockets. When I meet somebody out there, I'm like, hey, get on BiggerPockets. Go listen to those podcasts. Go get involved if you're thinking about getting into real estate, because I think it is such a good resource.
Appreciate that. Cool. All right, final question for me. What do you believe sets apart successful real estate investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started in the first place?
I would just say just having that persistence and determination. Just you look at them, stay after it, having that mindset that I'm going to do this, and just keep looking at it. And it's okay if you let one slide by. Just keep looking at them, keep your eye open, and you'll eventually find something if that's something you're really meant to do.
Right on. All right, Michael, AKA Mr. Rogers. Where can people find out more about you, man?
Yeah, you can go on my main website, which is chandler-property.com. And then if you're somebody that's getting into self-storage, you want to see the self-storage websites, just go to the self-storage page. And then in there's 3 separate websites for each facility that you can rent from. And you can kind of see how you rent. And then my BiggerPockets profile, you can go out there and just look for me on BiggerPockets, and I'll be glad. I may not get back to you immediately that same day, but I'll try to get back to you in the next couple of days if you got a question.
Right on. And definitely do check out Michael's Burr article. Looks like a hoarder threw up all over the kitchen and everywhere else. So,
And Brandon, you should give away like one of those free books of yours to anybody that correctly guesses first what that.
I will.
What that is in the kitchen.
I will do that in the comment section of this blog post. First person to correctly guess, one of these things is not like the other, will get a free copy of my book. So there you go.
Wow. Right on. All right, guys. Well, listen, Michael, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Lots of great information. And you guys can find Michael on BiggerPockets or definitely hit him up on the show notes of the podcast with any questions at biggerpockets.com/show139. Michael, thanks so much for coming on.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that was Michael Rogers on self-storage investing, SEO, value investing, Burr, and all sorts of other stuff. So big thanks to Michael for coming on. That was cool. You gonna go buy some units now?
I'm gonna go buy some storage units right now, like today.
Nice.
No, at least what I got out of that was I want to just go and I said I want to go find out the storage unit in my area, like people. What I want to do is I want to do what he did. He said he asked them if they just want to go to coffee. Like I would love to just connect with 3-4 of the guys or girls that are owning storage units in my area and just meet with them. I don't even know who they are. Like I think that's a good first step.
I think, and I think that's a great actionable step for anyone who's still listening to the show, which is if you are not on a regular basis making it a habit to go out and have coffee with other investors in your area, you should do that. Stop what you're doing. When you're done listening, get out there, find some people that are investors in your area and make sure to meet them, because there's so much you can learn. A lot of people are freaked out about competitors. Well, these people are your competitors, but they're also going to be your collaborators. So get out there and meet people.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool, man. It's good to be back again. Feels fresh. Feels good to be back behind the microphone.
Yeah. Look at you. Fancy California tan and everything.
Look at that. All shiny. And I don't even have a shiner.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You're not cool like me.
Yeah. Well, all right. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Show 139 of the BiggerPockets podcast. Definitely check out the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show139. And we will see you next week on the new BiggerPockets Podcast. Thanks for listening. I'm Josh Dorkin, signing off.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.